What are you getting in?
Надежда, здравствуйте. Вы меня слышите?
Я вас слышу очень хорошо, но никого не вижу.
Ой, сейчас мы включим камеру, вы нас увидите весь зал. Только две технические детали, если можно.
Да.
Я Анна, кстати, потому что вы не видите имя. Мы будем вместе на этой панели, как бы вы будете основным спикером, да? Я представлю, да, вас и передам вам слово, вы уже как keynote speaker уже представите панель.
У меня короткий,
Удобно вам
да,
так?
хорошо. У меня очень короткое, да, вступление будет, конечно, да.
Как вам удобно?
А вы будете модерировать и всем давать слово, да?
Вам удобно так, если так
Нет,
будет?
конечно, я просто буду счастлива, конечно.
Отлично. Но вы как keynote-спикер можете вмешиваться, и если какие-то у вас комменты, пожалуйста.
Ну, если я, может быть, в конце задам вопросы, мне будет очень интересно, и я тогда себя выключу, потом просто выключу свой микрофон.
Отлично, хорошо, спасибо большое.
Анна, спасибо вам огромное, да.
Вам тоже.
Наденька, я воспользуюсь случаем и поздравлю тебя с наградой. Я так счастлива за тебя.
А с какой? Это у меня награды нету, это не у меня.
Мне сказали девочки, что твоя книга была представлена.
Ну, она была представлена, но это просто книга. Я надеюсь, что я ее просто подарю при случае. Это была презентация на...
Да, мы очень ждем эту книгу, чтобы можно
Ой,
было...
прекрасно. Я надеюсь, что мы увидимся, наконец, все-таки лицом к лицу.
Ой.
И обнимемся. И будем делать все, чтобы это случилось поскорее. Но награда для нас всех – это вообще-то награждение Димы Муратова и Марии Реса.
Да.
Это просто для нас, для всех колоссальное, такое невероятное событие, которое перекрывает весь негатив, который есть.
И Светочку вчера я видела, наградили за документальный фильм.
Это было 4 года назад. Она просто
положила, да?
Она просто выложила. Нет, это то, что было раньше.
Жаль.
Но у нас наградили замечательную. У нас вчера получила награду замечательная девушка, наша подруга, соратница Галя Арапова, она глава Центра защиты прав СМИ. Да, это вот было вчера, мы ее поздравляли, с удовольствием от нашей группы тоже я ей передам теплые слова, это ей будет очень важно.
Ага.
Ну, замечательно, что мы друг друга все-таки видим хотя бы в сети. Спасибо технологиям.
Хотя бы голос родной услышать.
Ну, увидим еще лица друг друга, я надеюсь, да. Ну, будем думать. Привет наших от всех, и от, между прочим, от фонда Роза Люксембург, с которой вот мы тоже тут встречались, и от наших всех девушек. В общем, мы продолжаем.
Начнем или подождем еще несколько минут, потому что... Анечка, спроси, пожалуйста, микрофон у тебя.
Начнем или подождем несколько минут?
Ну, как вы решите?
Вчера у нас была полная панель, а сейчас вроде бы, я вот думаю, может быть, я сейчас месседж посылаю всем, чтобы они присоединились. Минуточку подождем, пожалуйста, я сейчас пошлю. Хочу найти, где у нас они все вместе. Джамиля.
Es просто я сюда это своим фото.
Ну, мы по-английски говорим, да?
Вроде бы, я вот пытаюсь. Вот она.
Если можно, у нас просто перевод получается в одну сторону.
Да, да, я поняла, я готова. Нет, я просто спрашиваю.
Мгм.
Окей, прекрасно.
Я всем пишу, чтобы они присоединились. Я не понимаю, что это не случилось. Да, Ольга Карач. Джамилия написала. Анна Лиза написала. Угу. Я вроде бы всем написала. И еще из Украины какие слова?
Значит,
Нет. Нет.
Нина Потарская. Ольга Карачич. Ольга Карачич.
Мы сейчас им посылаем снова. Секундочку, подождем, сейчас они получат линки, мы это сделаем.
Окей.
Присоединимся. Это Афганистанец.
Camile'nin ekeli. Ha. Camile'nin Olga Nakarach. Karank ne? Ha, yetkavli.
Dear online and offline guests, we are starting our today's panel, and just a small remark about yesterday. Yesterday we had a quite productive day during which women from different countries shared with us their personal stories and told us about how displacement affects people from different countries, and particularly women. Today, we also have a very interesting panel on geography of displacement and women's stories. Our first part of the day will be mostly online. And now I will present our main speaker, who will make an introductory remarks on the panel, after which we will pass the floor to different speakers from different countries who will then speak about the situation in their countries and their own experience. So our first speaker is Nadezhda Agzhikhina, journalist, writer from Russian Federation, who has PhD from Moscow State University, Faculty of Journalism. She has enormous experience in teaching. She is a wonderful writer, and she also has major experience in civil society sector. Ms. Agzhikhina was teaching in such prestigious universities as Moscow State University, Bernard College, Tempur University, and many other places. I'll pass the floor to our first speaker, and then we'll continue. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. I'm very happy and very honored to talk to you and to be with you, even in a Zoom format. I do hope we'll meet later. I will never forget our meeting face to face. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Face to face in Yerevan several years ago, when we're sharing our experience, and I hope it would be in the future as well. I'm very pleased for this wonderful introduction, but first of all, I am a journalist and feminist, and today I'm director of PEN Moscow, a human rights organization dealing with writers, journalists, and the words. And I'm very proud to speak at this panel because we are talking today again about women's stories and women's voices. And it is very remarkable that today, despite all challenges for peace, democracy, human rights, women's rights, women voices are being heard. It's obvious. A week ago, last Friday, I was happy to take part in the fantastic event in the ceremony devoted to Nobel Peace Prize Award for journalists. For Dmitry Muratov, a friend of mine from Novaya Gazeta, and Maria Ressa from Rappler from Philippines. And Maria Ressa was talking about lack of women on the top level of peace movement, lack of women among Nobel laureates. And she was talking that without women, democracy and progress wouldn't be achieved. And she was absolutely right. And her words and her dedication to human rights and women's rights, it's our hope. Like several years ago, in 2015, another Nobel Prize laureate in literature, Svetlana Alexievich, was talking about women's contribution into progress, into humanities, into our future. And her famous book, Woman's War Unwomanly Face, opened for millions of readers all over the globe truth about Second World War and women's experience, which is different, which is unique. It was also a contribution to general movement to the better future. We couldn't forget that journalists covering conflicts make visible suffering and experience of women, that women's reports from former Yugoslavia war about rapes based on ethnic origin lead to general, universal understanding of rapes during war as crime against humanity. For centuries, women been raped during conflicts and wars, but it was just one of phases of war and nothing special. Anna Politkovskaya killed 15 years ago. We had this anniversary. She wrote about suffering of women and children and ordinary people in Chechnya. She was not only a reporter, she participated in practical help to those people. She rescued elderly house. Mostly women used to be in this totally forgotten house in Chechnya during the war. Today, another woman journalist, Victoria Ivleva, does a lot for displaced women and women refugees and suffering, mostly women in Eastern Ukraine. And what is important, that those women, journalists, they couldn't do anything for their reports without cooperation with women's groups, human rights groups, Memorial, other groups on the ground. And women NGOs, they contribute today in improvement of international and national information space, and women voices are becoming more and more presented. I do hope, Bill, today we have fantastic women, real heroes of our days from different countries will know more about women's voices and women's experience. I do hope we'll all together should do a lot for presenting women's voices on an information and global scale. And I would like to finish with reminding another woman. Unfortunately, she passed away a couple of years ago, but definitely if she was alive, she would be with us. Her name is Lydia Grafova. Lydia Ivanovna Grafova, famous journalist, wrote on human rights agenda for a lot. In 1990, to her office in Literaturnaya Gazeta, dozens of women and children from Baku, Armenian refugees, came and just asked her help, what to be done. She never expected to be a human rights leader, but since that she devoted her life and all her talent and all her writing to help of displaced, violated, oppressed people. And she established a big organization which is still alive, It is called Forum of Resettlement Organizations, and she wrote more than 500 articles about those people and helped more than 100 people. So I think we should go on. We have fantastic experience behind us, and definitely will make our agenda visible, and we women would make difference.
Thank you so much for your empowering speech. I think, and and most of the people here, I'm sure, will agree with me that your highlight of the importance of women's voices for democracy and progress is very important, and the uniqueness of women's experience, which need to be brought up and shared, is also very important. We all think that the courageous and hard work that women are doing and overcoming all the challenges on their way is extremely important. And thank you for your input. Now I will pass the floor to our next speaker, who is Yulia Garashvili, chair of Consent NGO, international expert, member of working group on gender realities in OSCE region from Georgia. Yulia was working for many years. She was working and continues to work on the protection of rights of IDPs and conflict-affected women. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning to everybody. Thank you, Anna, very much for introduction. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good.
We are here.
Ladies, this conference is very important for us because what Gulnara and Democracy Today decided to dedicate this conference to displacement is issue which is very hot for us in South Caucasus, and at the same time, because of contradictiveness of issues of internal displacement, of other forms of displacement, it's somehow not in the focus of attention. Last year was created action network of women who are working on forced displacement. It's 19 women from all over the world, mainly from countries affected by conflict, where we have such outstanding women like women from Afghanistan, from Syria, from Colombia, from Lebanon and Palestine. And I just wanted to tell you that to have representatives of displaced communities on the board of important international organization is very important. And I hope that decisions and voices of women who will be heard today and yesterday on this conference, also with support from Democracy Today and with all outstanding international and local women who are presenting today, will be brought to decision makers as in the national level as well as an international level, to move forward issue of displacement. Today we have many forms of displacement. In 1995, Geneva Conference on Migration made specific definitions of different kinds of displacement, making that these people who cross internationally recognized borders can apply for refugee status, and these who are displaced within the country can be called internally displaced. And there were not enough place to accommodate situations which more and more are appearing in the world, because current conflicts, current situation, they are much wider than this nomenclature. And we need also to think how to organize new definitions maybe for people who are displaced today, persons who are now displaced to Armenia and who suffer from consequences of war and who need to get all required assistance. And for this, you also need to have to be somehow notified, and that international organizations will know what kind of needs and how it should be done. In Georgia, we have different kinds of displacement. We have internal displacement in protracted conflict. When situation of displaced women and displaced community is not very far from what was during emergency, but because it's protracted situation, attention is less, it's already somehow irritating cases for internationals and also sometimes for locals. Because when you could not solve the problem, you start to look on people who are within the situation like on part of problem. And it's what we need also to discuss, I think, how in different stages of displacement to assist to people to be visible, to be equal, to be included in development and on peace building. In Georgia, we have a law about internal displacement. We have some mechanisms for women to be included in, for instance, in meetings with people who participate in international negotiations, in Geneva discussions. But this voice to be, this participation to be really meaningful, to have results, needs somehow to be changed. So we should not only to talk, we need for sure to achieve results of what we are talking. If women are saying that due to conflict and due to closing of water from the other side, they have no access to agriculture, it means that this issue should be issue on the negotiation table. If women are saying that the majority of young people are leaving villages because they don't want to live under constant threat, this is issue which need to be negotiated. And these young people need to know what will be the result of this negotiation. And what is very important that it will be opportunity for young people and for women from different sides of conflict to talk and to meet. I have in my hand one of our last publication, which was done with support from women's group, with working group on women and gender realities, where we have voices of women, which we try to promote on international sphere. We think that it is very important because sometimes political consideration, political participation of women, which is extremely important because you need to have women, but you need to have women on political level in such quantity that their voices will be counted, and not one or two women, because it's not enough. We need to have economic empowerment of women. And what writes Lia Chlachidze, the woman who was part of your conference several years ago, she writes, everybody now talks about empowerment, economic empowerment of displaced women. But where is this displacement? Where is this economic empowerment? We do not see it because business is afraid to come to the regions which are on threat of instability because of conflict. And it's what we need to think, how to bring business, how to bring funds, that it will be not rest of funds which is going to women, but that it will be really funds which can allow women to become breadwinner in family. Because from our sad experience in displacement, women become the main actors who are worrying not only about children, elderly and husbands, but also about economical prosperity and about prosperity of community and about survival of community. So knowing these things, knowing that women need to be one of the main actors at community level and higher, we need to think how realistically we can empower women, not only to talk about empowerment, but to give instruments, to give, for instance, in Georgia, a problem is digitalization. We say that, Nadezhda was saying that it is very important that we can see each other, at least on internet, when the borders are closed and we cannot cooperate. But for this, you need at least to be able to pay for internet, as this internet should be presented in village. And women should know how to deal with this. So digitalization, prevention of cyber threats, help to women with devices, because women do not have access to devices. Because if it's only one device in family, it will go to child or to husband. This is the first part of economic empowerment. The second is special fund for women, special fund and special access, because women to get money, she need to have access to land, she need to have access to credit, she need many preconditions which need to be done. We try in Georgia to ensure access of women to economical empowerment, but it's very multi-componental thing. And I think, Anna, that in Armenia, we need together to think how we can do it sustainable, not short one amount that for few months women will survive by small activities, but how to prolong this. And really all these things should become very, very important and should become not only women's organizations priority, but country priority. Because in post-conflict situation, women are these actors who can save whole country. And I think it is very important. I know that yesterday you heard from our women about concrete stories of IDP women. I don't want to take this time from this, but I want to say that what we have now in our regions, it's several networks which are working very actively. It's our working group. It's Global Network for Women Peace Builders, who helps now to create networks and to mobilize all women who are working in peace building, and not only in peace building, because sometimes after conflict it's difficult even to use these words, but we need to find a way how to involve women in dialogue and how to give women voice when on top level dialogue will be conducted, that they will not ignore our interests and our priorities, that women should be in center of negotiation, because women is person who is keeping country alive and who is keeping community and family alive. And once more, this action network which exists now, and which one of members of this action network is also Cecilia Jimenez, who is special representative of internal displacement and who is fighting for representation of displaced women. So we need to use all these instruments, and I will happy to bring information from this conference to this action network, because what they are trying to do, they are trying to advocate in all of the work with all stakeholders about women's priorities. Thank you very much, and I am very happy to see my dear friends, Shirin, Nadir, as my Armenian friends, and I wish you peace in first line. And of course, health, because it's COVID time and we need to survive this, and we will survive. Thank you very much.
You highlighted really very important things. You brought up the situation on IDPs in Georgia and around the world. You talked about particularly bringing up experiences of women, about visibility of displaced populations, bringing up their voices and how important that is. You spoke about meaningful participation, which is very, very important in this context. You mentioned economic challenges for the conflict-affected regions, and importance of bringing voices of women, especially displaced women and women IDPs, as important component for making all the policies and activities viable and make sure that these policies are working. You talked about sustainability of policies and activities, which is also very important for making this process work. Thank you very much for your input. And now we'll go on to our next speaker, who is Nina Patarska, National Coordinator in Ukraine for the International Women's League for Peace and Freedom. And Nina is focusing on identifying human rights violations based on gender analysis, government responses to those issues, as well as ways to approach transitional justice and developing strategies for its implementation. For more than 10 years, she has been an activist of the feminist movement, coordinator of Women's March in Ukraine, an expert on women, peace and security. She developed and conducted seminars on women's leadership, women activism, civil campaign, planning and basic tools for protection of women's rights. So I'm passing the floor to Nina Patarska, please.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for opportunity to participate online. And I really like this time just for this, when we can be closer and never mind about the distance between us in any sense. So after this presentation of my SMED, and before a couple of days, I tried to think what issues I want to raise for participants. And after many years, we research and I study needs of women in contact line and IDPs women. And I have no idea how we can, or why we need to make this life better during the conflict, because the main problem is a conflict, and how we can solve these problems and avoid conflict in the next future for any woman. Because of course, many of you know that women suffer more during the conflict, but not just because of the sexual violence. first of all, about the destroying social economical system, and because women attached to the reproductive labor and social economical system, and all this infrastructure is like a women's sphere for participation, for realization, and it's disproportional participation of women in this sphere. So from the one hand, it's a way for why it's an answer why women are more flexible to this sphere, why they're easy to integrate into the new community. But in other hand, of course, we understand that if we spend a lot of time to the new activities, to integration into the new community, into the reproductive labor, into the other stuff, it's no space for other type of lives. There are no space for economical activity because they exist just 24 hours, no more. And because of this, we can't cover by our labor and our emotional attempts all sphere of community life, our personal life, and economical life, and also political life. So for me, it's sometimes I hear that it's not fair when we push women to participate into the political life and economical life without covering all these important things and covering these needs for personal emotional life and just for care about these women, because they spend much more time for normalization of their life. And for me, it's also a tricky point how we want to normalize this life, because the main problem of this life is a conflict, and how our governments need to cover all these problems by government programs. And after 7 years, many of our activists, women activists, peace activists, faced with a burnout. And of course, it's impossible to be on the alarm situation so long time. And I know the situation in this region, and of course, we learned the experience of Armenia, Karabakh, Azerbaijan women, and that time I am afraid that we be together with you on the same stage, because previous time we was full of expectation that we able to do something with this conflict. But now it's clear that situation not change very fast, and of course, and I don't want to all my thoughts don't want to normalize this situation. So I still believe that it's stop once, maybe next year, maybe next couple of years, but the other my part understand that it's can be maybe, and what we can do with these conflicts, with a lot of conflicts. And now I understand the situation on international political agenda, and I expect, together with other analytics, that we are in the front of new division of world, and world now like a couple of parties of next conflict. So now I'm so happy to be together with other women through all this division, because you know this main division like Russian, America, China, and Middle East, and we expect a new escalation, new big escalation. So they just one idea which I have. It's a solidarity, and how we like women can show this solidarity and focus on our needs and our normal life. And I don't like to normalize my life to the conflict. And I really believe that we have opportunity and strength to avoid, even to normalize our life to conflict. So sorry, I was not so productive because I have no tools for this, but just thank you for space to think about it.
Thank you so much, Nina. Thank you for your input. You mentioned really important things like women's participation in political life, efforts that women put to normalize their life in conflict situation, like burnout of the activists, which is vital issue and not spoken about very much, since women activists are working 24 hours, 7 days a week. And of course, such kind of intense work and dangerous works causes burnout and a lot of issues related to health. You spoke about prolongation of the conflict and how it's affect people, and particularly women, not allowing them to normalize their lives. And you also mentioned the importance of women's solidarity and importance of joint work, which is very important. And this conference is also a space which can help women to work together, which can help us to come together, share our thoughts, and find some vital solutions. Thank you very much. So our next speaker is Jamila Afghani, National Coordinator of Afghanistan for Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, Afghanistan. Jamila, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well. I'm sorry, I cannot turn on my camera. Should I go without camera?
You can turn on the camera. Okay,
Yeah.
right. Thank you very much.
Now I got the permission. Thank you very much. It's great to see lots of good friends and new friends on this important platform. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the space to be with you. The situation in Afghanistan, I think, has been in the top of international media in the past 4 months, where the country with more than 40 years of war and conflict reached to a very different scenario 4 months ago that we did not expect it. We were struggling for peace and getting involved in peace process to be part of the peace process, but all the situation turned down with the political shift when the president of the country, the democratic and elected president of the country, ran away from the country and left the scene for Taliban, with whom they were fighting for the past 20 years. Unfortunately, right now we are back on the spot where we were 20 years back. Again, women are denied to go to work. Again, women are denied to have education. Again, people are in huge starvation situation. And because of the lack of support from Taliban on social media, or a lot of censorship from Taliban government at the moment, whatever is on the media or social media, it is not presenting half of the reality on the ground. Our people are starving. Women are again sit in home doing nothing and seeing and experiencing domestic violence every day. So this is the situation on the ground, but what made me very much upset and disappointed, it is about the role of international community. What the international community, USA and NATO, was supporting Afghan government in the past 20 years to fight against terrorism or Taliban or whatever. But now they have left us behind just like nothing. Today, international community is on keeping on hold their funding, and women organizations are at the survival mode. There is no funding to have salary for women employees in national and international NGOs. Most of government female employees are sitting at home and they do not have any job. And it is very painful that you see that female teacher is sitting on the corner of a street and polishing shoe to keep herself alive and keep a little bit of survival for her children. And it was very interesting. My sister before me, I'm sorry if I was not properly understand her name, Naina. She was saying that I don't like to normalize my life with conflict. But let me tell you that this is the country of Afghanistan, that our life has been normalized with the conflict. I'm 45 years old. I never seen a peaceful day in whole my life in my country. In this 40 years of my life, always there have been. And this is the fourth time that I'm getting displaced from my country. And due to the last incident in Afghanistan, I was almost 4 months back evacuated to Norway without any plan, without any understanding that where I'm going. And because of the evacuation, I was ended up in Norway. I'm very much thankful for Norway government who supported me and my family to be safe physically. But now we are safe in such an environment that we were extremely unsuitable for our condition. I'm a woman with disability. We are placed in North Norway in a freezing cold, where day and night or night, it is totally darkness. I cannot move outside because of my disability, and because of snow and icing, I cannot go outside. All the time I am at home. These are a little bit platforms and engagement through online, otherwise I'm totally paralyzed. And from the other side, the language barrier, and more than all, that we are pushed to go through the system of asylum seekers. Like I'm not a willing person to go for asylum. I really want to go back to my country. I want to be engaged in my country and in the life of my country. I don't have any travel document in the past 4 months. I'm not able to travel out anywhere where I can be engaged in the political life of my country, like many other sisters who are displaced right now in many, many countries around the world. So besides that, I don't have the travel document. I want to go back to my country, but according to the asylum seeker procedure in Norway, I am not able to go back to my country for next 7 years. And I need to keep the protocol, otherwise I don't have means of survival here. So I want to take you back to Afghanistan and just showing a little bit comparative what Taliban are doing, what the international community is doing to us. So Taliban did very diverse action against Afghan women, against women. At the same time, like international community has frozen the money of Afghanistan. At the same time, almost all donors have stopped funding in Afghanistan. And at the moment, everybody is starving in a very bad situation. I can see that the rise of domestic violence is hugely very high in Afghanistan, all over Afghanistan, child marriage, forced marriage. And there is no institution to go for that. Under the rule of Taliban, we cannot approach to the system or mechanism to seek justice because it's totally patriarchal, it's totally tribal, it's totally religious type of system that women has no voice, no rule. And international community is just watching on that. And there is no specific mechanism. And I had a meeting 2-3 days back with my colleagues and staff back in Kabul, and one of my colleagues was saying that international community is announcing millions of hate money to go to Afghanistan. But it is just like that you're showing a piece of bread to an angry child, but you are not hand-overing that piece of bread to people, to that child who's hungry and watching for that piece of bread. There is no mechanism, there is no way that how to send the money inside Afghanistan because of this frozen money, because of the sanction on Taliban, on the government of Taliban, and people are starving. They are not harming Taliban, they are harming people of Afghanistan. International community must come with a proper mechanism or solution to deal with it. This is a huge humanitarian crisis. I'm afraid that we had lost many lives during the 40 years of war, but this starvation will be a huge human loss in the history of human being, that all international community is watching and people are dying for nothing, for the sin that they have not committed. Yes, our life is normalized with conflict, but it is beyond any human capacity. If we are outside Afghanistan, we are suffering. If we are inside Afghanistan, we are suffering. And there is really need of collaborative efforts. We don't want our next generation of this universe to live with this type of misery, war, conflict. And how long? Why we cannot stop it? We are all millions of people who are in the favor of peace, but there are a few warlords that controlling everywhere in the world. And we need to stop them. We need to do some collaborative actions in order to pave the way for peace and democracy for which we are struggling. And we need to make it a reality on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your empowering and touching speech. And thank you very much how hard it was for you to share with us our story and the story of your country. But thank you for this effort. Thank you for telling us about the situation on the ground. Because as you mentioned, not a lot of things are passed to the people. Media hides a lot of reality and people really do not know what is going on the ground. And thank you for this, telling us about the situation, about women's rights situation, human rights situation, and how women are deprived from the most fundamental rights in Afghanistan, and how media is hiding the situation, how organizations are challenged without any funding, especially women's organization. And how you mentioned about economic challenges, about essential needs, that people do not have essential means for the survival and they are facing humanitarian crises. And thank you very much for saying about the importance of for the international community for coming up with appropriate measures, not to punish people, but to bring them some assistance to escape this humanitarian crisis, to come out of this situation. Thank you very much. It was very empowering, very touching, and you brought up extremely important topics. We have. Okay, so Okay, I'm sorry for these technical things. Now we have our next speaker, Annalisa Milani, who holds a first degree in history and philosophy. After obtaining a degree in international law, she followed studies on human rights, democratization, rule of law, and she achieved a PhD in international law and human rights. She started to work with UN in Rwanda in 1995, and then she was involved in many other missions in Balkans, Africa. Since 2003, she has been involved in several OSCE and EU observation missions in Burundi, Zimbabwe, Congo, Cambodia, Nigeria, Tunisia, Myanmar, and many other countries. As a freelance journalist, she made several reportages from the Middle East. Since 1995, she is member of WILP, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and many human rights NGOs. And since 1995, she takes part in many UN conferences. Please, Annalisa, the floor is yours. We are sorry for these technical issues. Now we'll continue.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
thank you.
here online.
Yes.
Finally, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone of the women. I was listening the very tragic situation of Afghanistan. Being a journalist, I don't want to enter in analysis or in data as it was with some speech for some people. I want only to speak about a story, a little story on which migration and women migration, not really displacement, because as you know, there is a difference from migrant and displaced person. But I was confronted this year to 221 in different story of migration. And that's what I'm looking for as a journalist. 2 days ago, I have received from a colleague from Poland a little story of in the border between Belarus and Poland of one woman. The name of the woman was Avin. Avin was 38 years old and she was pregnant. And when she died of septicemia, also the baby was died for 20 days. Upon arrival at the hospital, her body temperature measured 27 degrees. Too cold, too hungry, too thirsty. In the wood near the border with Poland, where she was hiding together with her husband, Murad, and her other 5 children since early November. Starting from Iraqi Kurdistan, the 7 people they were on need to have only better life. This is why they went off the Kurdistan and they tried to cross another border. This is the story of Avin. But last summer I was in Lampedusa, the very little island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. You say that we need to go around the border. So I'm moving from the one border to another border that everyone knows. The Mediterranean Sea is a long line where many, many people are in this line to try to cross. Lampedusa, this little island in front of the coast of Tunisia, is one of the major bays since 1999 where the people are crossing. Every day, I was there, every day, hundred of people. Also, if the newspaper is not speaking about this, they came by boat. And then if they are able, particularly from the Libya coast. So the story on which I was confronted is the story of 7 women. It was on 6 September 6 September of this year. And there was a night. During the night, I was I say, I want to see the star in this wonderful, beautiful, little island. And as usually, there are in this little, that is the line of Europe confronted with the coast of Africa, the last line of Europe, there was a call from a little group of UNHCR. And they say that there was an autonomous landing of a little boat in Cala Pulcino. The sun was gone away, and the road can hardly be seen. We, as a little group, I was invited. There is a little minor group that are try to take day by day, minute by minute, try to take care of these migrants that are coming by boat. It's a very, very minor group because the large part of this little island don't take care, as all Europe. It seems really the very face of Europe, this little island. So this little group call me, they say, do you want, we receive a call that there are 8 women on the coast and they are in a very difficult situation. So I went with the car and with the other people, I take some bottle of water, glasses, juice, snack, a garbage bag and a thermal blanket. And we went there. It was a very risk because the path was so long, a very risk. To cover this little path, it was taking more than 25 or 6 minutes. It was slippery everywhere, rocks, without considering the risk of failing this rock. And there was no sign. We get this call was coming from UNHCR worker, and they say, please go down because there are really 8 women and some children there. So they are exhausted. when we arrive to the closest point, we take a bag and we put some necessity and 2 bottles of water, few glass, and then we try to go down. Also, it was very risky. It was dark, very dark. We were with a torch, with the light of the telephone that was given by the Médecins Sans Frontières, one doctor of Médecins Sans Frontières. And we arrived little by little. We were able to go down where it was the coast, the water. And then we found out there 7 women and 5 children coming with a little boat that was completely broken from the coast from the rocky coast of Tunisia. I was really emotional. I tried to pick up a little girl with my hand, and because the mother was really tired, she screamed and cried. So I decided to calm her, and of course we were with a mask and with the gloves, and then of course I think she was in fear. The most important thing for her, it was don't lose the mother. Always the eyes was also if the path was very bad, but she was with one hand in me, completely turned to try to see if the mother was behind. We got up one hand by one hand, tried to maintain the contact with the mother, with the eyes of the mother that was behind. And she was, we arrive little by little, we arrive to the coast where there was a doctor and other people that was waiting these exhausted women. There were 7 women and 5 children. When there was the police waiting for these people, and when this little girl abandoned my hand, entering the little buses to go to the center for the migration that is in the island, this little island, and now is full of 2,000 people. She was waving she was waving the little hand, and I understand in this moment that she was really in confidence with me during this little road that we made together. That was 2 little stories, having 7 women with 5 children that I collect with my pen during this year. Next week, maybe I will go to Poland to see really on the reality the situation. And I will try to see if the story of this woman, Avin, from Kurdistan, is the story of thousand people. I'm coming back to the, because I was working with some journalists, also if I was not there directly, because it's very difficult, on the migration from Libya. And as you know, Libya is receiving thousands and thousands euro from Europe, from Brussels, because the cost of Libya and all the cost of the South Mediterranean, but particularly Libya, they are in a hypocrite way, the way on which Europe are trying to be safe for immigrants. Working on this case of how now in 2021, the situation is in Libya. I was always in contact with one very courageous journalist that was also in detention in Libya, in Tripoli, that was trying to see how is the detention center in Libya for immigrants. The most important now detention center is the name of is in Arabic, I don't know, in English is Al-Mabani. It was opened, this detention center near Tripoli in 2020 with a huge amount of money coming from Brussels, from Europe. Al-Mabani is one of the 15 detention center, migration detention center recognized in Libya for the moment, but there are many of detention center illegally, where also all the report from Amnesty, from IOM, they say that the condition of immigrants, particularly women and men, are really terrible, tragic. There are in Al-Mabani, I know from this journalist, there are more than 100 women that are raped, violated almost each day. Everyone, particularly the institution, Brussels, know the situation, but nothing for the moment is going to happen. I have this report. I hope to be, as a journalist, to be one day to visit Libya and to see with my eyes what is going on. But it's not difficult. Migrants are captured by the Coast Guard, and many supply of this Coast Guard is coming with with money that the EU is going to give to Libya. And for example, also the journalist said to me that this Coast Guard, Libyan Coast Guard, is a part not of the army, regular army, but is a part of a militia. And Brussels know very well where the money is going. 3 years ago, also there was a report that said that the EU was created trust fund for Africa with 35 million of euro that was going to Libya. 35 million. And this million is going on the hand of this guard of cost. There is no transparency, but everyone knows the situation how it is. It's real tragic to see how Europe is going to deal with this situation. It was started on, it was this, also the money is going from the money is going from the citizen of the European Union. Mm-hmm. What can be when this situation really start in 2010, when people flying violence, particularly in 2010, when people flying violence, as everyone knows, poverty, the effect of climate change in the Middle East and in sub-Saharan Africa started to flow into Europe. The World Bank predicted that in next 50 years, crop failure and desertification will displace 150 million more people, mostly from the global south, accelerating migration in Europe. And that's what is happening day by day. On one day in Lampedusa, if I close my eyes, in this moment, I know that in Lampedusa, there is maybe, as the little history that I was telling, maybe there is 100 or 150 people coming from the Mediterranean Sea, from the coast, from the Libyan coast. The situation is the Europe since 2010 press Libya to stop such migration. Gaddafi was at that time a Libya leader, encouraged Sub-Saharan Africa sign a friendship treaty with the minister at that time, Minister of Italy, Silvio Berlusconi, and he was threatening Europe for having more and more money, as in Turkey, as everyone knows what is going on in Turkey. Now, after Gaddafi went out, and Libya was entering, as you know, in the chaos, but doesn't matter if there was a chaos. European Union was trying to give through some project. One of these was Mare Nostrum. The name was Mare Nostrum. European Union was giving through this project money to Libya to buy boats, to pay this militia, for buy little buses that are using, not as in this treaty is right, save the life of the people, but for to enlarge the very large, in no positive way, for a not transparent way for dealing with immigrants. The situation is going on. The tragic situation is going on. As I said, I have the opportunity to see with my eyes what is going on. Everyone know one boat. The boat is this from the coast of Libya, particularly from Zuaira, that is more near the coast of Sicily, of Lampedusa. The boat is guided by this militia. As I said to all the people, this militia is paid with the money of Europe. So European Union is really doesn't matter if it's Germany, France, Italy. Of course, Italy is the most important partner because it's in front of this situation, is the first front line. But what I want to raise to all the women, I think if we are European women, we need really to stress that we are living in a hypocrite country that are make the problem, they are paying people external to the border, external to the line of the Mediterranean Sea to stop in terrible condition in this detention center, the immigration, the line of immigration. And the women are part of this tragic situation. Many women, as I saw in my little experience. So I wanted to stop because really, I think this one situation I'm ashamed about to be European woman dealing with this situation. Of course, as with many NGOs, we are trying to fight this situation, but it's going on. In this moment, if I will be in Lampedusa, maybe this morning another boat is coming with women and men, and on the port of this little island, and we are doing nothing. And the only thing that the government, European government, and EU is doing is close the eyes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Recording in progress.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you very
speech.
much
Thank
for
you.
your speech. Thank you.
You presented
You
stories
presented stories of
of displaced populations. They are
displaced populations.
struggling.
They are
You
struggling.
presented
You presented,
struggles of displaced
struggles of
population,
displaced population,
illustrated situation of
illustrated
women and
situation
children
of
who are
women and
displaced.
children who are displaced.
Awesome. You spoke about the situation in Libya and that money provided by the EU are not spent budget-wise and do not support ordinary people and people on the ground. And you also stress importance of the actions, especially from the EU side and people who are living in the European Union. Thank you very much for your story, which was very important and touching. So we'll go to the next speaker. who is Lira Ismailova, coordinator of Bir Duino, Kyrgyzstan International Human Rights Documentary Film Festival. Time for women's action from local to global, not to work only on problems, but to combine efforts and resources to prevent risk and disaster. So, Lira, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this very good opportunity to participate in this very important discussion. And we are presenting with my colleague Murat our presentation about the current situation with attention to military conflict and the fate of internally displaced people from Afghanistan. Is it okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
First of all, dear participants, let me just inform you regarding the current situation with our research regarding the situation in Afghanistan and our recommendations what should be done to improve the current situation. First of all, I would like to present you the current map and I would like to attract your attention that finding effects of aggression. Can you kindly ask some participants? Thank you. Naradzo, I would like to unmute your mic. Thank you. We would like to underline that the effects of aggression and military conflicts on the territory of Afghanistan, they are bringing not the effects of aggression not only in the territory, spreading in neighboring countries throughout the Central Asian regions. Here on the map, you can see that the aggression from Afghanistan and the ways of displaced and migrants and refugees from Afghanistan, they are directly addressed to the countries of Central Asian region. Also, here on some photos, you can see that the victims of armed aggression, they include innocent civilians, women and young girls, who are especially the first victims and vulnerable social groups and ethnic minorities. Here on the photos, you can see that when we are talking about the effects of aggression and the conflicts, especially these women and young girls, they usually become the first victims and the first suffering groups from such conflicts. Regarding the key risks and disasters for internally displaced people and refugees from Afghanistan, we would like to underline several specific aspects regarding this problem. The first one is the threat to the lives and health of such families who are representing the displaced people and refugees from Afghanistan. We would like also to underline the threat that they have faced the food insecurity, because previous speakers, they especially attracted your attention that they suffer from hunger. For today, the official statistics say that more than 95% of population of Afghanistan, they suffer from they face with the food insecurity and suffer from hunger. And the third aspect is we would like to say that it's a need for primary school education, because a lot of people, a lot of young school children, they face the problems that they have no access to education, primary school education. And here maybe you can from the last mass media. That almost all teachers in Afghanistan, they were prohibited to spread the education among young children, because it's limited and they have limited access to education because of the pressure from Taliban movement. And the fourth point is the need to find a temporary place of residence in other countries, especially in the Central Asian region. It's very important because neighboring countries, they should act very properly, act actively to work out specific recommendations how to receive such displaced people and innocent refugees, especially women and young girls.
And UNICEF Executive Director Henrietta Ford expressed concern and report the child marriage in Afghanistan is on the rise. Local families are offering daughters as young as 20 days old out for future marriage in return for a dowry. And as the extremely dire economic situation is pushing more families deeper into poverty and forcing them to make desperate choices. UNICEF starts that it will work with religious leaders to ensure that they are not involved in the nikah, the marriage contract for young girls, and further urges the de facto authorities to prioritize the reopening of school for all secondary school girls and allow all families teachers to resume their jobs without any further delays. During our 15th festival on documentary films in Bishkek, we screened the film What Tomorrow Brings from Afghanistan about access to education of girls. And it was a lot of, comments and feedbacks from participants. And during the festival, we organized a special lab, access to education for girls in Kyrgyzstan in framework of discrimination and religious fundamentalism. And we discussed about situation in Afghanistan and in Kyrgyzstan too. Resident representative for UNDP in Afghanistan started that the country is facing the worst humanitarian disaster ever witnesses, adding that 97% of the 38 million population are at risk of sinking into poverty. And World Food Program also reported that almost 24 million people in Afghanistan, or 60% of the population, suffer from acute hunger. Now we would like to speak about political position of Central Asia countries regarding migrants from Afghanistan. The wave of refugees from Afghanistan to Central Asia began in late June after the terrorist Taliban seized the border areas. In the beginning, there were mostly soldiers and civilians who had to fight the Taliban. Kyrgyzstan policy toward refugees from Afghanistan is slightly milder, but broadly similar to that of Kazakhstan. The country is ready to accept up to 1,020 ethnic Kyrgyz. Back in early July, the government instructed government agencies to work through a set of measures for possible evacuation. Specifically, this includes preparing resettlement sites, creating the necessary infrastructure, and providing medical, social, and legal assistance to ethnic Kyrgyz. According to official data, 73 Afghans received refugee status in Kyrgyzstan, and applications of 67 people are still under consideration. Kyrgyzstan has no experience in accepting refugees on a mass scale. Only in 2005, during the Andijan events, 450 people arrived in Kyrgyzstan, but they immediately moved to third country in Europe. Tajik authorities possibly deported Afghan asylum seekers from its territory, which is unacceptable for the authorities to violate international obligations and treaties to which Tajikistan is a member. In August, a protest of refugees from Afghanistan was held in front of the UN office in Bishkek. The protesters demanded to give them official status in the republic or send them to third countries. Afghan citizens have been living in Kyrgyzstan for 18 to 20 years, but they lack documentation and live on a refugee mandate that makes it difficult to find work. They demanded that they be given Kirghiz citizenship or sent to such countries as Canada or America. Unfortunately, no one came to them from the UN, and the hotline could not answer the questions either. Forced deployment of ethnic Pamir Kyrgyz group trying to escape from armed aggressions and human rights violation of Afghanistan. You can see the photos. And our organization organized an online communication platform, has been established by our organization, this Forum Asia International Organization, and Central Asian leaders. Active involvement to provide rapid and timely aid to victims of war and armed conflict from Afghanistan. Platform participants developed specific and practical recommendations to strengthen collaboration between different experts to reduce disaster risk and threats to activists from Afghanistan. To date, our organization has already conducted a series of expert online meetings with specialists, lawyers, and activists from Central Asia, and plans to continue working together with provide effective assistance to internally displaced Afghan people. And we should attract your attention that we should a lot of work with local people because how say they have
specific understanding and knowledge. Here you can see on the screen the specific recommendations that were worked out in the framework with international obligations, multilateral agreement involving Kyrgyzstan. Here it's
yes, key recommendation is a framework with international obligations and multilateral agreements involving Kyrgyzstan. It's important for states to ensure plans of action to prevent risk and disasters rather than deal with the consequences. Joint action on food security for refugees and victims of armed aggression. Develop adapted socialization program for internally displaced people. Bring together civil society, human rights defenders, and community leaders to develop solutions. Develop recommendations and indicators based on expert assessments and forecasts for the collective security treaty organization, European Union and UN countries. Involve international financial institutions and business in humanitarian projects. Okay. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your input and for the speech about Afghanistan restrictions that Taliban brought to their regime, specific restrictions and deprivations that were imposed on women and their rights, and the current situation. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Nyari Taurai Mashayamombe from Zimbabwe. She is a multi-award winner for human rights activism and is a founding executive director of Tag Alive International, a Zimbabwean girls and women's rights organization. She is the leader of Every Child in School campaign, a campaign for the state funding basic education for the poor, and is promoting sustainable development goal for a quality education. Her campaign changed the education laws in Zimbabwe, which not commits to state-funded basic education, a result of this campaign. She is working with young women and girls from Zimbabwe. So the floor is yours, please.
Can the host please allow me to show my video?
Just a moment, please.
Thank you.
Hi, Nyari. We have a slight problem with the program because a couple of people have entered with the different emails that they have registered to. So administrator cannot get into all of you. What we decided to do, we have to restart the entire process. So we ask for 5 to 10 minutes, break to restart program and to allow you and 2 other speakers and question and answers. Sorry. And I would ask other you participants as well. We come back again in 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Sorry. See you. Yeah. Ольга Горячева, Модельская выпускника. Давайте объясните. Ecco, sforza. Prima che fosse seminari. Molto cinque amici. E tutti fosse collegare a cena. Questo proprio. E Rose buone. E chi lo fa? Okay, second. Questa situazione bene. Essa acesta nuestra rușine. Deci ne Asma roze care a fost, da. Este nearina să țină rețetă.
We are sorry for technical challenges. We'll have slight change into these speakers. So now we will give the floor to another speaker, Rose Mbone, a laureate of International Young Women Peace and Human Rights Award. From Kenya. She's a trainer, facilitator of dialogue, a trauma awareness and resilience expert, and an entrepreneur. Rose, please, the floor is yours. You can speak now. Oh, she can't. Rose, do you hear us? Rose, do you hear us?
Is it language interpretation? Original audio?
English.
Nice.
Yes, great. So you hear us. Can you please turn on your video so we could see you as well?
Okay.
Thank you.
No. Guy, wanataka video yangu na sasa the light and everything. Okay. Where is it?
Rose, you sit. Rose, hi. You sit next to the window and we don't see your face. Can you change your position?
Okay, okay.
Eski մշտապետակցի պատմություն ունի։ Իրանք ուղղ ժամանակ գողացել են, ուստիպել են, որ ինքը զինվոր լինի։ Փախել է այդ զենք ծախելուց, զենք տալուց ու կազմակերպել ակտին երիտասարդների, որպեսզի դեմ լինեն պատերազմի։ Ու հիմա մի խումբ երեխեք է պահում մեծ, այս օկուպացիայի ժամանակ շատ հետաքրքիր էր։ Ասма զարմացած ինձ նամակ գրեց, ասում են դիստանցիա պահել, լվացվել, մենք ոչ օճառ ունենք։ Ոչ դիստանցիա կարանք պահենք, նաև ասма ոչի ծնողներ ունեն, երեխեքի բոլորի 90% երեխեքի, որ ինքը պահում 18 տարեկան, 16 տարեկան ծնող է դառնում արդեն երեխան, որտեղ ծնողները կամ մահացել են պատերազմի ժամանակ, կամ սպիտից։ Եվ հետո մենք փող ուղարկեցինք իրան, որ ինչ-որ ձերնի կարողանա օճառ բան առնի, ասեց գիտես, այն ինչ-որ դու ուղարկեցիս, զինվորներ եկան գողացան, օճառներ, ջուրներ, ամեն ինչներ, հենց որ մի ահավոր պատմություն է իրական։
So great, we see you now.
Yeah.
So the
You
floor
look
is
fantastic.
yours, please. Can you please turn on your microphone so we could hear you as well?
Whew, COVID times.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice seeing all of us today. Yesterday, at time, I missed time. I was thinking it was my time, and then everything happened different times, but it's okay. Today I'm here.
So if you don't mind, I will just shortly present you once more and you can start, okay?
Okay.
So once more, now the speaker is Rose Mbona. She is a laureate of International Young Women's Peace and Human Rights Award. She is a part of network of young peace builders in Nairobi country, Kenya, a trainer, facilitator of a dialogue, trauma awareness expert and resilience expert, and an entrepreneur. So please, the floor is yours, Rose.
Thank you so much. And allow me to just stop this the video for 1 minute, but I want to now talk. Thank you so much for this great opportunity to be part of this meeting. And I was to talk about displacement and how it affects women, for example, and also try and provide some of the way forward. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Amazing. So I was sharing, and I had this feeling that when the displacement happens because of different issues, for example, natural disasters, for example, conflict and violence, for example, if people are not in agreement, then this thing has a way of hitting back to women and children, because during the displacement, mostly people will tend to think that they will run. Men will always feel the urge to find the space and identify where their families are going to stay. But women have no option than to think of, how am I going to come along with the children? How am I going to tag along with my entire family? In most displacement, people end up scattered in different zones, different areas. Sometimes family is scattered and you don't know where your family is as a parent. This thing has a way of affecting the society psychologically, emotionally, physically, because at the end of the day, excuse me. at the end of the day, it is those wounds that people carry along that then end up hurting them. And if they're not well prepared or managed at personal level, this will create a circle of hurting others, because you are hurting and you don't know how to go about your emotions, but then the society still expects you to behave normally. I also would like to talk about the displacement and how it also directly affects men. For example, when violence is happening in our society, men sacrifice a lot. And sometimes we tend to say that women and children suffer. I would like to say that women, children, and men also suffer along the way, because there is no a better price to pay, like even giving up your dear life in such a process. Men are dying out there trying to protect their families. Men are dying out there because they are bold enough to swallow live bullets on behalf of their communities, on behalf of their tribes, on behalf of their clans. So I always feel that displacement has a way of traumatizing the entire community. And this is something that should be looked into, not from a women's and children's angles perspective. It is an issue that should be handled communally, because then we will find a way of solving these problems. We will find a way of reconciliation. We will find a way of cohesion, peaceful coexistence in our communities, because we are a healing community. I foresee examples of maybe pumping more resources and healing processes to women and children when disaster happen or conflict and violence. Where are the men? Men are hurting. Men are our key allies when it comes to negotiation, when it comes to reconciliation, because if this woman is healed and she's going back to her family, when things come back to normal, then she's not going to start from scratch. They're going to reunite as a family. So I feel this is one of the recommendations I would really put out there. And I also have an urge of making sure that children protection are adhered to during this displacement, mostly when women end up in camps, for example. It is very difficult for these children to cope with the environment and even start their normal lives. I would urge that children be given special attention, because these are people who are growing up in such difficult environments and difficult situations. And these are memories that cannot be erased in their minds and in their hearts. We should protect our children. Displacement has no way of being age appropriate, but as key respondents, as a people who have interest in protection and prevention, we should make sure that no matter what the kids are going through, we find a way of making them understand that this is not a permanent solution for their lives. And even if they are in these camps or they are out there, how do we make sure that they continue with life and they in a dignified way? Because some of the things they go through cannot be, we cannot even explain. We have what we see, what some of the challenges they go through, but how can we make sure that we overcome them? Time and again, there are issues on children being raped, and rape has really been used as a tool for violence in most cases, when there is, especially when there is conflict violence in a certain community. The weakest point that an enemy will target to finish or to demoralize our community to give up on their struggle is to sodomizing these kids, defiling these young girls. This is something that continues to be used in most conflict-prone areas. How do we make sure we protect our children? Another perspective or another recommendation would be, how do we hold our governments accountable as pioneers and champions and advocates of peace, it is important to make sure that the government knows some of the repercussions that comes with these challenges women, children, and men are going through. How do we make sure that they adhere to the rule of law, the international human rights rule of law as a government? Because then they are entitled to protect both the land, life, and property of their citizens. We make sure that they are part of our process. We are not working in isolation. They know that this is happening, and if there is need for security to deliver humanitarian support, then the government should be in the process of making sure that they are working closely with these actors to make sure that this is delivered. Another angle is to make sure that we understand some of the situations that women go through in these processes they live them with a life forever. They will live with a scar. How do we make sure that even if we are healing, these scars are reminders that this is a process we went through, and we wouldn't wish it even on our worst enemies as women. We embrace our scars with dignity, with love, and we appreciate the pain that we went through and make sure that we are healing peacefully, because we can heal negatively. We can heal in such a way that we have just forgiven and forgotten, but we are not going there anymore. We are not unpacking that wound. So let's focus and move on with our lives. No, I have a feeling that we should not forget. Let that scar be a reminder, because if you remember, then you will do something about it. If you forget, then you're brushing shoulder and assuming that whoever comes next and goes through whatever I went through, then they will find a way of dealing with it. So I have a feeling we should keep documenting some of these struggles. We should keep on documenting some of the successes of women who are doing these great initiatives across level, across the continent. This will serve as a reminder to our generations and generations to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your presentation and comprehensive speech. You talked about very important things like displacement, different causes and reasons for them. How women are the ones who always take the burden of taking care about their families and children. You spoke about violence and how it affects the entire community, women, men, children, in different ways, but still affects everyone. You talked about rape and how it's used as a tool, and how it creates the scars of violence in case not healed and stays with the people until during the entire lifespan. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. And now we are going to our next speaker, Olga Garach, who is the chair of Nash Dom NGO, political analyst from Belarus. Olga has a background education in Master of Arts in Political Science, European Human Rights University from Vilnius, Lithuania. She is a civic writer, independent journalist, author of over 120 articles on the field of civic and political work, resistance, conflict resolution, gender problems, and etc. She also has numerous awards. International Peace Award from Berlin, Germany. She has International Award for Civic Courage from Germany, and she was also recognized Person of the Year from Amnesty International for Belarus for being the best human rights defender at 2007. Olga, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Спасибо огромное. И сегодня я буду говорить про вынужденное переселение женщин в Беларуси. Это новое явление, с которым мы столкнулись в 2020-2021 году. И если мы говорим про вынужденное, принудительное переселение женщин из Беларуси, то я бы их разделила на 3 категории. Во-первых, принудительное переселение, депортация женщин по этническому признаку. В первую очередь это касается женщин польского этнического меньшинства, поскольку идет невероятное давление на неформальный союз поляков в Беларуси, в том числе 25 мая 2021 года были прямо из тюрьмы вывезены на польскую границу 3 белорусских женщины, гражданки Беларуси, полячки, представительницы польского меньшинства. Это Ирина Бернацкая, Мария Тычковская и Анна Панишева. И они прямо из тюрьмы были оставлены на нейтральной полосе без всяких документов, без, собственно, вещей, без всего и без объяснения. Женщины, когда их везли из тюрьмы, непонятно куда, через леса, как вы понимаете, через довольно безлюдную местность, они были даже уверены в том, что их везут в лес убивать. И, конечно, они оказались на нейтральной полосе и очень долго не могли понять, что происходит и куда они должны идти. К счастью, на данный момент женщины находятся в Польше в безопасности, но, тем не менее, это довольно тревожные звоночки такой очень принудительной депортации, когда их, в принципе, не спрашивали, хотят ли они покинуть Беларусь. Напомню, что на сегодняшний день в тюрьме находится Анжелика Борис, это глава Союза поляков Беларуси, которая отказалась от принудительной депортации, но поэтому она находится на данный момент под пытками, очень жестоким обращением и довольно много тревожных сигналов, что на женщину оказывается очень серьезное давление, чтобы ее сломить психологически и заставить все-таки согласиться на вынужденную принудительную депортацию из Беларуси. Аналогично принудительная депортация, принудительное переселение женщин из Беларуси касается и женщин еврейского меньшинства. Так получилось, что 28 сентября 2021 года сотрудниками КГБ был убит сотрудник ЕПАМ, программист, еврей Андрей Зельцер. И после этого началась травля еврейского меньшинства в Беларуси. И началась травля, это вот вторая категория лиц, соответственно, работников IT-сектора, которые вынуждены переселяться, уезжать из Беларуси, причем целыми, я бы сказала, сегментами, фирмами, компаниями, в том числе в Литву, потому что они рискуют либо попасть под пытки и преследования, либо даже оказаться в тюрьме по вымышленным обвинениям. И на сегодняшний день, к сожалению, надо отметить, что с государственного телевидения идет очень сильный язык вражды в отношении лиц, ну, в том числе и женщин, польского и еврейского меньшинства. Поэтому, естественно, идет нагнетение, особенно среди сотрудников Александра Лукашенко, которые отличаются крайней агрессивностью и готовы применять насилие. Достаточно случаев, когда сторонники Александра Лукашенко просто нападали на своих соседей и избивали их. Поэтому принудительное переселение по этническим признакам, повторю, это новое, с чем мы столкнулись в Беларуси, раньше этого не было. Вторая категория женщин, которые попали под принудительную депортацию, это женщины по каким-либо политическим причинам. И, конечно, самые известные кейсы, их 2. 11 августа 2020 года Светлана Тихановская вместе со своей начальницей штаба Марией Мороз были принудительно вывезены на границу с Литвой и там оставлены... Какие-то проблемы со звуком или я быстро говорю сильно?
Проблема.
Нет, пожалуйста, продолжите, извините, у нас
хорошо.
просто технический.
Извините, я просто боялась, что тут какие-то накладки.
Нет, извините, просто технический вопрос.
Да. Самая известная, конечно, политическая депортация – это депортация Светланы Тихановской и ее начальницы штаба Марии Мороз 11 августа 2020 года. Женщин принудительно заманили сначала в Центральную избирательную комиссию, а потом, собственно, Светлане Тихановской поставили условия. Либо она отправляется в тюрьму, либо она отправляется на литовскую границу. Она сказала, что готова ехать на литовскую границу при условии, что с ней поедет ее помощница, которая на данный момент была задержана, и 2 женщин вывезли на литовскую границу, там же оставили. Второй известный случай, собственно, который произошел с Марией Колесниковой. Мария Колесникова – это второе лицо в белорусской революции, это начальница штаба самого известного оппозиционного кандидата Виктора Бабарика, который на тот момент находился в тюрьме. 8 сентября 2020 года она была похищена на улице и принудительно вывезена на нейтральную полосу на украинскую границу. Для женщины, для того, чтобы избежать принудительной депортации, вынуждена была порвать свой паспорт и отказалась переходить на территорию Украины. Это привело к тому, что Мария была задержана, и на данный момент она находится в тюрьме. Что нужно отметить, когда мы говорим про принудительную депортацию женщин по политическим причинам? Это, конечно, такие, я привожу сейчас крайние случаи, крайние ситуации, когда женщин похищают, женщин задерживают и прямо из тюрьмы отправляют на границу, но, тем не менее, довольно много белорусских женщин вынуждены сегодня принудительно убегать из Беларуси, спасаясь от репрессий и от давления. В принципе, по оценкам разных экспертов, сегодня идет речь о том, что Лукашенко настроен выдавить из страны, заставить уехать из страны порядка 1 миллиона человек. И опять-таки здесь будет 2 причины, либо политическая, либо, собственно, это представители этнических и каких-то профессиональных групп, повторю, как поляки, евреи и программисты. Они попали в категорию врагов Лукашенко. Что нужно отметить, когда мы говорим про принудительную депортацию женщин? Во-первых, повторю, идет очень сильное нагнетение, идет постоянный язык вражды со стороны Александра Лукашенко и всего белорусского режима. В частности, нас всех называют беглыми, по аналогии как беглые рабыни, и постоянно режим Лукашенко подчеркивает, что белорусские женщины, даже убежав за границу, оказавшись за границей, они все равно остаются собственностью Александра Лукашенко. То есть женщинам отказано в субъектности. Второе – это то, что, к сожалению, надо отметить, конечно же, при принудительном переселении очень сильно возрастают риски домашнего насилия. Особенно это касается женщин, которые вынуждены были переселяться, собственно, вместе с мужьями, представителями IT-сектора, потому что, оказавшись за границей, они получают статус, собственно, жены, да, члена семьи сотрудника IT-сектора, и в этой ситуации они полностью зависимы от своих мужей. И, конечно же, это в условиях новой культуры, социальной адаптации и так далее, это рождает все-таки определенный рост домашнего насилия, который фиксируется. Третье важное, то, о чем заговорил сегодня белорусский режим, он заговорил о том, что все, кто были принудительно депортированы из Беларуси или вынуждены были убегать, они будут лишаться белорусского гражданства. И на сегодняшний день готовится законопроект в парламенте Лукашенко о том, что лица, которые депортированы по политическим причинам, либо убежали по политическим причинам, они будут лишаться статуса белорусского гражданства, равно как и им белорусский режим пытается экономически давить на этих людей и повысить в несколько раз оплату коммунальных платежей за собственность, если она у них осталась в Беларуси. Это также рождает очень много проблем, потому что женщины, которые оказались за рубежом, как вы понимаете, находятся не в самом хорошем финансовом положении, и для них, например, поднятие коммуналки в 5-10 раз за квартиры, которыми они не пользуются в Беларуси, при невозможности продать эти самые квартиры, это создает дополнительный стресс, дополнительное давление и дополнительную довольно тяжелую финансовую ситуацию. Также надо отметить, что идут постоянные угрозы убийством и угрозы похищений. Эти угрозы идут публично, в том числе в мой адрес, и угрозы идут о том, что, несмотря на то, что вроде как бы женщины вынуждены депортированы, да, например, повторю, Светлана Тихановская, да, или там другие, скажем, или женщины, которые успели убежать. Тем не менее, режим решил, что он совершил ошибку, и он хочет вернуть всех нас домой. Поэтому постоянно идут угрозы о том, что либо будут похищать и вывозить обратно в Беларусь в багажниках, либо угрозы убийством. Как минимум в Вильнюсе зафиксированы попытки слежки за 5 женщинами-правозащитницами, активистками. Они были вынуждены в том числе обратиться в литовский парламент за защитой и обратить внимание, что есть какие-то странные мужчины, которые за ними ходят, преследуют и, очевидно, там снимают на телефон. И ситуация, конечно, тревожная. Она особенно стала тревожной после убийства белорусского правозащитника Виталия Шишова в Украине, в Киеве, 3 августа 2021 года. И очень понятно, что Виталий Шишов был убит белорусскими, предположительно, и российскими спецслужбами, поскольку занимался помощью в переселении людей, белорусов, которые бежали от репрессий, в том числе переходом границы, поскольку режим включает в базы невыездных тех, кто участвовал в протестах. Также, конечно, надо отметить, что вместе с лишением гражданства режим готовит и запрет въезда на людям, которые, собственно, оказались за рубежом, и чтобы они не могли вернуться, даже если они очень сильно захотят. Особенности переселения женщин из Беларуси в другие страны. Первое и самое главное – решение или, в принципе, решение о переселении принимается очень быстро. Это, как правило, речь идет про час-два, и, к сожалению, гендерная структура нашего общества построена таким образом, что если бежит мужчина и вынужден все-таки скрываться от репрессий, то ему достаточно взять деньги и паспорт, и, в принципе, общество не ожидает больше ничего от этого мужчины, он просто бежит. Для женщины ситуация намного сложнее, потому что женщина в белорусском обществе несет ответственность за детей и за престарелых родственников. Кроме этого, как правило, у белорусских женщин есть какие-то питомцы, мы говорим про городских жительниц, и, естественно, когда есть 1 час на то, чтобы собрать вещи, то речь идет и про то, что она должна собрать детей, родителей, решить вопрос с питомцем, берет она его или нет, есть прививки, нет прививок там и так далее. И также ее побег очень сильно усложняет, конечно, то, что, как правило, речь идет про несколько человек. Понятно, что, например, купить билет на самолет для одного человека в семье или купить билет на самолет причем в последний момент, подчеркиваю, да, речь идет про ситуацию, что билет нужно купить максимально быстро, на максимально раннее, собственно, время, то речь идет про довольно значительные суммы для белорусских семей. Поэтому, если мы посмотрим на гендерный состав тех, кому удалось убежать за границу и кто смог спастись, все-таки речь, к сожалению, идет про молодых и одиноких мужчин. Совсем не про женщин и совсем не про женщин с детьми. К сожалению, практика показывает, что женщины с детьми не успевают убежать. И на сегодняшний день официально в Беларуси 100 женщин-политзаключенных. К сожалению, из известных нам потому что есть довольно много свидетельств, которые говорят про то, что женщин, которые сегодня находятся в белорусских тюрьмах по политическим мотивам, намного больше, но мы про них ничего не знаем, поскольку про них не сообщают родственники, и, соответственно, мы просто не знаем ни имена, ни обвинений, ничего, но, тем не менее, достаточно свидетельств, которые говорят, что женщин успевают задерживать быстрее, именно исходя из специфики того, что они не успевают убежать. Второй очень важный момент, опять-таки, почему мы говорим про час-два, да, на принятие решения, убегает человек или не убегает. Потому что после этого довольно быстро человек, в отношении которого возбуждено уголовное дело за все, в принципе, за все, да, это может быть, например, даже то, что женщина на балконе вывесила, извините, свои лифчики, бюстгальтеры белого и красного цвета, это уже основание для возбуждения уголовного цвета, либо белые и красные трусы, извините за подробности, но за это тоже в Беларуси уголовные дела, или простынь вместе там с красными трусами, это уже, собственно, причина для возбуждения уголовных дел и причина для того, чтобы ЖКХ или МЧС воровала это нижнее белье с балконов, довольно много свидетельств, да, то, соответственно, получается ситуация, что она попадает в базу невыездных. И именно в этой базе, когда она попадает в базу невыездных, остается вопрос, что она может бежать только нелегально. После похищения Романа Протасевича и принудительной посадки самолета Ryanair в Минске эта ситуация осложнилась, а теперь после кризиса, миграционного кризиса на польской границе, она усложнилась еще больше, поэтому бежать становится еще сложнее. И понятно, повторю, что женщине с детьми, особенно маленькими детьми, бежать через лес 10 километров с маленьким ребенком, и, как правило, не одним на руках, становится практически невозможно. Хотя, тем не менее, есть и хорошие примеры, когда в том числе женщины идут, вот буквально месяц назад перешли нелегально границу, шли по ледяной воде, и, тем не менее, вот смогли пройти, хотя, конечно, с очень большими последствиями для здоровья. Поэтому, к сожалению, также надо отметить очень большие проблемы для женщин, которые вот оказались в условиях принудительного переселения. Это проблемы с трудоустройством. Если мужчина всегда найдет работу, это тяжелый физический, ну пусть не квалифицированный, не очень оплачиваемый труд, то для женщины, особенно если она все-таки смогла выбраться с 2-3 детьми, найти работу практически нереально, потому что отсутствие или недостаточно развитая инфраструктура поддержки такого рода вот социальной группы женщины с детьми, да, как правило, отсутствие знаний языков, как правило, очень сильные психологические травмы вследствие пыток и жестокого обращения, и, соответственно, это очень сильно влияет на психику. И многие другие факторы, они очень сильно влияют и очень сильно осложняют адаптацию женщин в ситуации принудительного переселения. Я хочу тоже привести статистику, про которую, наверное, никто не знает, но только в Литве уже за последнее время 3, правда, неуспешные, но тем не менее, попытки суицида среди лиц, которые принудительно депортированы, и две попытки из этих 3 – это женщина. Одна из них молодая женщина, которая 20 лет, которая, собственно, оказалась в очень тяжелой финансовой ситуации. И в целом после всех издевательств, пыток, которые ей пришлось пережить в Беларуси, потом она смогла убежать и так далее. Тем не менее, вот получилось, что, к сожалению, попытки суицидов будут, и мы прогнозируем их рост именно вследствие того, что данная группа, женщины, которые вынуждены, да, вот, принудительно были депортированы, переселены, она остается в зоне невидимости. Потому что предполагается, что да, если там женщина задержана, находится в тюрьме, она политзаключенная, ну, мало внимания, но хоть какое-то есть, то к этой группе, к сожалению, внимания нет, она остается целиком и полностью в невидимой зоне. Поэтому я хочу поблагодарить за возможность рассказывать про эти проблемы и приводить эти примеры, потому что для нас важно, чтобы на эту группу женщин было обращено пристальное внимание, и, конечно, ситуация что-то стала меняться. Спасибо вам огромное.
Спасибо большое за вашу презентацию. Thank you for sharing with us the terrible experience of Belarusian women and highlighting what kind of challenges, humiliating conditions they have to face, and how they have been forced to leave their country. The major challenges, unhuman and degrading treatment towards the people who are refusing to leave the country. How people are imprisoned without any reason based on their political views, and how media is used as a tool to encourage hate speech. Thank you for sharing all the information, because as in many countries, real situation and the situation on the ground is not presented by the media, or is presented in a very slight way. So people are not aware of the situation, of a real situation that takes place in the country. Thank you for your speech. And now we have our last speaker of the panel, and I'm sorry for the technical details, the technical issues. And now Nyari Taureni Mashama Yombe from Zimbabwe will speak. And once more, I will present a short bio of our speaker, who is a multi-award winner of human rights activism and the founding executive director of TAG Alive International, a Zimbabwean girl and women's rights organization. She is a leader of Every Child in School campaign, a movement for state-funded basic education for the poor, and is promoting sustainable development goal for the quality education. Her campaign changed the education law in Zimbabwe, which now commits state founded base education as a result of the campaign and the work of Ms. Nyaradzo. Also, she works with women and girls, and now she will speak and share her wonderful experience with us. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the wonderful time. I really just want to honor the people of Afghanistan, women in Afghanistan, the horrendous stories that we had earlier on, and just the suffering across the world and in Africa. My name is Nyaradzo Teurai Mashayamombe, and I'm very happy to be here. And thank you for the wonderful platform. So I would speak a little bit about, much about my country, Zimbabwe, but a lot of what I would say kind of is a reflection of the majority of the bigger part of Southern Africa. So I will talk about internal displacement, and I just like what a number of people have said, that at the most of internal displacements are women and children who suffer the most. And I want to caution that, for example, in Zimbabwe, the majority of internal displacement is not something that is actually recognized as a crisis. This is something that has been normalized. It happens every day. It's not questioned. And I think the biggest challenge that the world then has is you then don't find it, for example, United Nations recognizing it as a crisis. Even though it is a crisis, it's normalized because there's not necessarily the killing of people. As we all know that for the most part, with the United Nations or with the world, for them to acknowledge or recognize a crisis, people have to be dying. So in Zimbabwe, people are not exactly dying from being killed, maybe by the state, as it would then be declared a crisis. So that enhance the problems that I'm going to talk about have been normalized, and possibly it's going to be very difficult to remove them because they are normalized. They are not recognized by the world as a crisis. So, for example, we have politically motivated internal displacements. So whenever we have elections, but there has been a bit of a change now with the new government that came in, but for the most part, in the past, you would experience internal displacements for the people who do not support a certain party. In this case, maybe the ruling party. Being very much internally displaced because of political violence, because they have to be to endure violence. They have to run away from their families. They have their homes or their dwellings burnt down, or they're being looked after. They're being looked up for by the other political parties. So that has been one of the key internal displacements mechanisms. We also have an internal displacement mechanism that's also can be said the ruling party has used in the past, in the sense of wrongly allocated land to people. So, for example, a political party can campaign and distribute land to dwellers, and the dwellers part with their money, little money, of course, but then it can be significant amount of money to poor people who are the majority. So before elections, people are given land, people are distributed land to majority of the poor, and then they start building, they find somewhere to stay, and then they go out and they vote for whoever that party, usually the ruling party that has given them land. At the end of, after the elections, politicians have won elections. After the elections, maybe a year after, these people have their homes destroyed by the council, because then the council suddenly realized that these people are illegally placed. So that is very rampant. A lot of people have lost money. A lot of people have lost resources, especially women and children. It is not surprising to find children and women and basically families, dwelling by the roadside or driven out to some place that is not usually seen in the urban. So you find this a lot in the urban cities, where there's a lot of people as well who have moved. And usually the people who are struggling with land issues are those urban dwellers. And also you find that there's a lot of displacement that is a result of corruption. So for example, you find that there is what we call land barons. These people can claim that they have land, people buy stands, and then when they buy stands from these people, they get allocated, in quotes allocated this land, and they go and build, and then again the council comes a year or two later. So there is a lot of poor governance, and a lot of the council sleeping on the job, where they allow people to build from illegal places, and then maybe a year or two later they discover that they come back and say, oh, you built in a wrong place. But then the council saw people establishing, from day one, and they slept on the job, and then suddenly they come. So we have this as a crisis as well, and often, as usual, it's women, girls, and children who suffer the most, because then they, at the end of the day, yes, we have men also included, but who has the burden of caring for the family, to make sure that the family has been fed, to make sure that children are safe, to make sure that they continue going to school. Of course, children's education is affected, because there's no way a child continues going to school from the roadside, operating from the roadside. That is pretty impossible. And then we have internal displacements due to natural disasters, such as cyclones. Lately in Zimbabwe, there's been a lot of periodic cyclones. Also, given the neighboring countries such as Mozambique, South Africa, and as well as drought has also been key drivers of internal displacements. Also, the issue of economic meltdown in the country, where the issues of poor governance, issues of violence, state instituted violence, human rights abuses by the state, as well as the issue of sanctions, have greatly affected people into poverty. Where then you find that 95% of people in Zimbabwe survive from informal trading, and add COVID-19 to it, where there has been lockdowns, where people could not go out and survive. So there's been an increase of displacements from urban to rural, because then people can no longer survive the urban, as well as increased gender-based violence against women because of COVID-19. Poor lack of livelihoods that have just been locked down, because, as I said, 95% of our people survive on informal trading, and when there are lockdowns, there is no trading. So there's been a spike in that as well. I want to talk about the issue of education, as the host read in my bio, that we've been pushing for state-funded basic education, where before COVID-19, more than 30% of children were out of school. But because of COVID-19, more than 80% of children are out of school. It's now been 3 years. Children can't go to school because of lockdowns. But then there's been a widening gap between the poor and the rich, because then you find that those who are wealthy or rich or middle class has been able to continue their children education online, supported education, extra lessons. But the poor have not been able to go to school. The government has tried to care for education through radio or television, but then majority of kids don't have access to radio, majority of children don't have access to television, or they do not have an appreciation of even if they have a radio or television, they have survival to think about. Parents are not they have not been supporting their children to have access to education during COVID-19. And as we are gathered here talking about this today, I think in a year, 2, 3, or 4 to come, we are going to have to deal with the outcomes of failure of our children have access to education. Like I said, maybe 85 or 90% of our children, I speak about Zimbabwe, but this is truth around maybe the global south and maybe also some parts of Europe, I don't know. But these are some of the outcomes that we're going to have to deal with. So generally, I would end by saying that internal displacement is a cancer that is not spoken about, that is not seen, that is not an emergency, especially for countries such as in Southern, possibly East Africa, where in countries where there is not exactly conflict or war, it's happening because of politics, because of corruption, because of bad governance. But it's been normalized. It's not being treated as a crisis because there is not exactly war, and the United Nations will only recognize that if it was a state of war. So therefore, we have this situation. And I'll end by saying that it is poor governance, abuse of human rights by the state, but also the impact of sanctions. Zimbabwe is under sanctions from the West, from America, from I think part of Europe, and this has affected people greatly. And I was very touched to also hear the lady from Afghanistan talk about sanctions and how this has impacted people. And I think as human rights players or human rights activists, we have always been faced with trading to be politically correct, where, for example, in my own country, we also have political polarization. In my own country, when I say, if I stand up and say sanctions are bad, I'm often then regarded as though I'm supporting the state, because the state has been on a parade, going on and on about how sanctions are bad, of which sanctions have been put to make sure that the state governs well, respects human rights. And then the state is against sanctions. But I am against the state's poor governance. So I find myself standing in between, neutral. I'm speaking against the state poor governance. I'm speaking against the state human rights abuses, but I'm also speaking against the sanctions because they are affecting the poor. So I felt so surreal, and I felt so happy when the speaker from Afghanistan, the lady, said actually that sanctions are affecting the poor. And I feel like out of this conference, if this is one of the key messages we can carry out and say, yes, states must be held accountable for human rights abuses, for corruption. We should also hold, accountable those who impose sanctions because they affect the poor. And I'll end with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your speech and for your presentation. You raised very important issues. You talked about internal displacement, about women and children who are suffering the most due to that, and how international community refuses to recognize the crisis in Zimbabwe, how political motivated is internal displacement. And you talked about political violence and brought examples which are very important. A displacement which takes place as a result of corruption. Due to that, children education is very much affected, and children are let out of the school. You talked about violence against women, which is increased as a result of internal displacement. And you talked about pandemic and the lockdown, which affected also violence against women, and due to which children are let out of the school, and the number of children who are left out of the school is increasing. You talked about sanctions and how it affects ordinary people, and I think it's also a very important topic which has been brought up because it's affecting poor people and vulnerable people at the first row. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very useful and important. And now we have an opportunity to open the floor for the answers and questions. And please, if someone has questions, please raise your hand in Zoom or just let us know that you have a question so we could give you opportunity to speak.
Should we raise our hands or what? What do you think?
Do you have a question, please?
You know, I have a suggestion, not a question. It's Nadezhda.
Yes,
Nadezhda.
please.
From Moscow, you know, first of all, thank you very much again for this fantastic discussion. I was deeply impressed by all presentations, by testimonies. And of course, I do believe it should be visible. If it's possible, I would ask to collect probably all presentations, all testimonies, all voices, and we could put it on different women's websites, and definitely for our professional community networks like Global Alliance for Media and Gender Europe, and probably I would be happy to share with Women's Committee of PEN International. I think we should pay more attention and should raise awareness about those issues. Nothing is not important. Even the necessity, natural need of ordinary, normal life in a normal, critical and awful situation, we should think about it. It's our dignity. It's our human right. I think we could raise awareness of social media and conventional media about that. So I would be volunteer to do something about this, and it's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this important suggestion. Yes, we are definitely going to do follow up. We have collected all the materials and we will write it down like a summary of the main key points that have been brought up by the speakers during all the panels, and we'll then send it to you. So, and we will also ask you to share it widely with the public, with your networks and connections. So we will definitely do it. But thank you very much for this important suggestion.
If I can, Anna, I joined to Nadezhda with thanks to all panelists because it's incredible experience. And I also propose that it will be shared with all networks in which we are working, that voices of women, especially for conflict-affected areas, will be heard in all over the world. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Yes, and as Ms. Shahinian is also telling me, yesterday Heidi also suggested to make some sort of publication on this, include all the suggestions brought up by women, and like make small publication based on this conference and bringing up all the important issues that have been raised. And this is the thing that we are going to do. We are very much dedicated to do that. And there is Heidi Menzold is one, she raised your, yes, Heidi, please, please.
Just really, thank you very much. And I also put it in the chat, but the question of sanctions, discussing it on a human level, this is really very important also experience and examples for us in European countries or in the US or wherever we are really discussing sanctions as the only measure against authoritarian regimes or corruption and so on, and without really thinking who is the one who is suffering most. And so I think this is something we in Europe take back anyway to our governments. And this is the great achievement of this network, to see the examples from the ground and what they are doing with the people, and especially with the women, and raising these voices all over. And thank you very much to bring together again and again in your difficult situation all these wonderful women and examples.
And we are also so grateful that everyone shared their stories and have their input. And now maybe small, yes, just a small input from Ms. Shahinian.
I would like to thank all of the speakers. I would like to thank all of the speakers of today and tomorrow, yesterday. It was really, really very important discussion. And as we said, we will go to prepare some recommendations that we take from all of the speeches and share with you and share with other government entities that will be speaking today. And then we'll think over preparing some recommendations from our group, sharing to the governments and to different, organizations, if you agree with this. And also Heidi yesterday proposed to have some publications. We're thinking about developing publications from the speeches of all of the presenters from our conference, which we had and heard before. Thank you very much. And if there are more questions, we're ready to listen to and continue our dialogue.
Yeah, we have two raised hands from Annalisa Milani and Shirin Jourdi. So please, Annalisa, maybe. Yes, please turn on your camera so we could see you and your microphones. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. And it was speaking about sanction, to go more inside of the consequence of this sanction. But I think with the sanction, we need also to go more inside, as I was saying today, of the consequence of the project that it seems made by the government, made by the institution as the European Union, that it seems that they are going on the road of giving an help. But in reality, it's growing up the very negative consequence and on the life of the people. I think together, to put together sanctions and all the instruments that the government in an hypocritical way are using to say we help the people, but it's not true. That's our goal as a women, to keep out the mask of the hypocritical way how the government and institutions are trying to help the people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Shirin also has some comment, please.
Yes, thank you. I want to comment on things that Nina raised and Jamila also confirmed regarding normalization. And this is something that we need also to think about, especially when it comes to a normalization, like the way we normalize our conflict. It's not that we wish or we wish not, but this is the way that we are able to, like, this is like how it's happening. And the most dangerous thing is when we talk about resilience. We talk about resilience as of coping. And I think we need also to raise this issue as one of maybe the recommendations that will come in here, that we do not want to talk about resilience as coping. We do not want to talk about even like funds or projects that go and talk about resilience. And people are talking about the ways that people are trying to live their life in misery, and how we are coping with issues of refugees, of poverty, of inadequacy of having health and services. So this is one. Second, regarding sanctions. I mean, we have lived in an area where sanctions have led to hunger and to many children, women who were killed because of these sanctions. So this is something we need to take into consideration as we talk about sanctions. How can we make sanctions that do not impact people? We have seen how sanctions impacted people in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, and now we have seen so this is something we need to take into consideration. Definitely, I support, and the second one, Heidi, and now what I want to know how to pronounce her name, Nandia. What she proposed to have this all recommendations and stories published, and that will be an excellent contribution of democracy today for women displaced, to be displaced, will be displaced, forever displaced, ongoing being displaced. So there are different categories of people being displaced. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shirin. And we will also thinking about not only sanctions, but to highlight how those sanctions are affecting women on the ground. So this is also very important to highlight. And we also have a comment from audience. Yeah, please.
Hello, everyone. Ես Վանին եմ, Սիրիայից։ Ես հաճախ եմ հանդիպում միջազգային գազագերբություններ ու գազագերբած այս հավաքներուն, որը կընդգրկե եւ դեղահանվածները եւ փախստականների կարգավիճակ ունեցող կանայք եւ աղջիկներ։ Ուրեմն ամեն մեկ հանդիպման ես ինչ որ կնկատեմ, կտեսնեմ դարբեր կանայք ունին համարյա նույն խնդիրները դարբեր երկրներում մեջ, այսինքն կրնալալ մեկի մյուսին չի նմանիր իբր որպես կարգավիճակ չափազանցված, բայց համարյա նույն կարգավիճակի մեջն ենք։ 2016-ին մենք առիթ ունենալով, որ քիչ առաջ խոսվեցավ գայունության մասին, մենք նկատի ունենալով այդ գայունության իրավիճակը 2016-ին կազմեցինք այնպիսի խումբ, որը կազմակերպված էր սիրիահայ կանանց կողմից։ Ես իրենց լիդերն եմ, մինչև այսօրս հաջողում եմ այդպիսի աշխատանքի մեջ, կամավորական աշխատանք է, որը կգործի 100-ից 150 կանայց հետ։ Նկատի ունենալով այդ կարգավիճակը, որ իրենք մինչև երբ մենք այս կայուն վիճակը պիտի հենենք պետական աջակցության կամ ինչ որ տարբեր կազմակերպություններով, պետք է ունենանք մեր ստեղծագործությունը։ Երեք ես երբ որ շեշտեցի այդ խոսքերը, որ միացուցինք մեր ցիրքերը կորզընթացքի եւ այժմ մենք այդ կանանց ուժերնից տալով մենք կազմակերպեցինք տարբեր հավաքներ, որը խումբերու կփաղկանա, աշխատանքային խումբերու, որը իրենք արդեն դեղավորվեցան եւ սկսան մշտական աշխատանքի։ Լա սնունդով սպառվող, լա գառուցեվով սպառվող, լա թեկուզ դիզայներական արտադրողական տարբեր կորձերու մեջ։ Արդեն այսօրվա օրով իրենք հաստատված են։ Իսկ ինչ կվերապերի քաղաքականության մասին, որ քիչ առաջ եւս նշվեցավ, ես համամիտ եմ, որ այսօր քաղաքականության մեջ ներգրավի այնպիսի կանայք ոչ փախստական ասենք, այլ ունին իրենց կարգավիճակը, որ իրենց դերը, իրենց կարգավիճակը եւ իրենց կարգավիճակը երկրի մեջ իրենց կարգավիճակը եւ իրենց դերը երկրի մեջ, որ իրենք արդեն հասուն են եւ խաղապար ունին եւ իրենք գիտեն ինչ են ուզում այս երկրից, որ իրենք հասնի այն ճիշտ մասշտաբին։ Մեր քննարկումները շատ լավ է, որ մենք քննարկում ենք, մշտական քննարկում ենք եւ ամեն կողմից լսում ենք մենք տարբեր խաղապարներ, բայց դերը ճշգրիտ դեր հասնելու համար պետք է այդ դերը այդ անձը, որ ինքը պետք է ներկայացնի։ Իսկ ինչ կվերապերի քիչ առաջ եւս արտահայտվեցավ, շատ զգացված եմ երկրից դուրս եւ երկրից ներս, որ գարկավիճակը, որ գուզե անձը ետ դառնա իր երկիրը, որ մնա իր գայունությունը շարունակվի։ Ես մի քանի ամիսներ առաջ, ուրեմն 9 տարի է Սիրիա չէի կացած, մի քանի ամիսներ առաջ կացի Սուրիա։ Ես հուսահատված ետ վերադարձա, որովհետև երբ որ բادرազմի ժամանակ էր շատ վատ էր իրավիճակը, որպես բادرազմի կյանք, բայց այսօրվա օրով, երբ որ տնտեսական անկումը չափազանցված է Սիրիայի մեջ, այդ մարդիկ իրենք կեցած են իրենց աշխատանքը։ Կանայք զրկված են իրենց աշխատանքին, որ իրենք պետք ունին, գարիք ունին այդ աշխատանքին։ Համեմատելով այս տեղի ապրուստին, որ մենք տարիներու ընթացքին, որ արդեն դեղափոխված ենք, հաստատված ենք եւ սկսած ենք մեր գործերուն, կհամարվենք, որ մենք այսօր այդ պայմաններում մեջ մնացող մարդկանցից շատ ավելի լավ հանգրվաններու մեջ ենք։ Այնպես որ պետք չէ հուսահատվել իմ կարծիքով, որովհետեւ ինչքան հուսահատվենք, այնքան էլ խոչընդոտները մեր թիմացն է։ Բնականաբար տարբեր մարդկանց ընտանիքներու մեջ տարբեր խոչընդոտներ կա, լա գրթությամբ, լա բժշկական, առողջապահական գործընթացով եւ այլն։ Բայց երևի թե կփորձենք միաժամանակ այսպիսի քննարկումներով մեկը մյուսին ուժ առնելով եւ խաղապարները մեջտեղ իհայտ տալով մենք առաջ երթալ։ Շնորհակալություն գազམ་ագերբության այսպիսի հաջող հանդիպման։
Շնորհակալություն. Thank you. Thank you very much for your input, Vani. Thank you for raising that women have same issues from different countries and the importance of joint work or solidarity. And thank you for bringing women's situation in Syria and the existing challenges and economic crisis that exist in the country. Are there some comments or remarks or questions? No, so if not, we will just sum up right now and we'll come back in 1:30 Armenian time. It will be in 40 minutes. So we'll just have break and then come back in 40 minutes. Thank you. Фотографируйте. Так, Миропе, подождите, я найду. Хеса. Հեսա, այսինքն կարեք կոպի անեք, էլի։ Են չկա է սպիկերը, որը որ կա է իրանք, էլի, են զրպիսալի, դա։ Հա?
Ele só me falando. Ele não está organizando, que você tem essas fontes aí, como é que é, São Paulo.
Есть меканский есть. Тишта. Can, asalım canım. Asalım, kurtulun. Çek.
Eski çiçek rüyası. Մխոսքով դուք մաքսիմում 15 րոպե կարող օգտագործեք մաքսիմում։ Հա։
Впустим нашего товарища. Алло? Алло? Ancan öyle. Так. Просто мюстери челлини, а социганские здравомар.
Okay, good afternoon to everybody. We are happy to restart our second panel of our conference. We had very interesting days with a very exciting discussions, and we brought the situation from local processes to global. And we found out that there are so many similarities and how unprotected are people, and especially women, in the process of displacement. We discussed also issues on compensation and impact on population of this compensation. And some of the subjects like this might become issues of our further discussions and research. Without further delay, I want to pass our discussion to a second panelists. I would like to say that one of our panelists from EU, Maria Papa-Michel, she got sick and she would not be participating. But we start with Sambat Gharamanyan, advisor to the Department of Local Self-Governance Body of Minister of Territorial Administration and Infrastructure. And we're happy that he joined us today to present the situation in field. Thank you very much. Mr. Gharamanyan, the floor is yours.
Նախ եւ առաջ թույլ տվեք տարածքային կառավարման եւ ենթակառուցվածքների նախարար եւ նախարարության անունից ողջունել այս միջոցառումը եւ կարեւորել թեման ու հիմնախնդիրը իրականում տեղահանված անձանց մասին խոսելուց մասնավորապես կանանց մասին պետք է հասկանալ որ տեղային լուծումներով խնդիրները չեն լուծվում հատկապես 21-րդ դարում գլոբալ կառավարման գործընթացներում եւ տեսություններում կան հստակ ուղենիշներ, որ բացի լոկալ եւ գլոբալ գործընթացներից գոյություն են նաեւ գլոբալ գործընթացներ, որոնք լոկալ տեղային դրսևորումները բարձրացնում են գլոբալ մակարդակ եւ գլոբալ մակարդակի process-ները իջեցնում են լոկալ մակարդակ։ Այս տեսանկյունից տարածքային կառավարման նախարարությունը հատկապես պատերազմի եւ համավարակի շրջանում տեղական ինքնակառավարման մարմինների միջոցով տեղահանված անձանց Արցախից տեղահանված անձանց տարբեր ուղղություններով օգնել եւ աջակցել է հիմնականում նաեւ միջազգային դոնոր կազմակերպությունների հետ համատեղ կան համայնքներ որոնք օրինակ Գորիս, Կապան, Հրազդան, Չարենցավան, Մարտունի եւ եւս մի քանի համայնքներ որոնք շատ ակտիվ են եղել այդ process-ի մեջ մարդկանց փորձել են տեղական ինքնակառավարման մարմինները որպես առաջնային օղակ բնակչության այդ շփումներում փորձել են հնարավորինս աջակցել ներգրավել տարբեր աշխատանքներում եւ այն թվերը որոնք որ մենք այդ պատկերը ունենք ես կարծում եմ որ դրանք տպավորիչ թվեր են այն իմաստով որ նախարարությունը ուղիղ իր լիազորություններով չի առնչվում դրան բացի միգրացիոն ծառայությունից որը նախարարության կառավարման ոլորտում է միգրացիոն ծառայությունը գիտեք որ միգրացիոն ծառայությունն էլ այդ շրջանում մեծ աշխատանք է կատարել մասնավորապես սկզբնական շրջանում մոտ 91000 քաղաքացու տեղորոշում եւ նույնականացում է տեղի ունեցել այնուհետեւ էլեկտրոնային բազա է ձևավորվել որով տեղահանված նույնիսկ եզրույթը փորձել ենք շատ քիչ օգտագործենք կամ ընդհանրապես չօգտագործենք միայն այն դեպքում երբ որ նրանք ծրագրի շահառուներ էին դառնում որովհետեւ ես կարծում եմ որ սխալ է ընդհանրապես տեղահանված տերմինը օգտագործելը իրավական տեսանկյունից չկա նմանատիպ տերմին գոյություն չունի թե ազգային մակարդակում ազգային օրենսդրությունների տիրույթում թե նաև միջազգային օրենսդրության տիրույթում եւ միգրացիոն ծառայությունը փորձել է այդ մարդկանց նույնականացնել եւ կարողանալ պաշտպանել իրենց իրավունքները եւ այլն։ Այդ մասով այդքանը տեղական ինքնակառավարման մարմինները տարբեր աշխատանքներում արդեն ասացի, որ ներգրավել են մարդկանց ըստ իրենց մասնագիտությունների, համայնքապետարան են հրավիրվել այդ մարդիկ, ֆոկուս խմբեր են ձևավորվել, այսինքն կոնկրետ աշխատանք են տարվել իրենց մասով։ Ընդհանրապես նաև խոսելով բռնագաղթվածների մասին, մեր միգրացիոն ծառայությունը 88-ից 92 թվականներին Ադրբեջանից բռնագաղթվածների մասով արդեն, եթե չեմ սխալվում, 2004 թվականից ծրագիր է իրականացնում, որով բնակարանային ապահովման խնդիր է լուծվում, արդեն թվային տվյալով մոտ 150 ընտանիք, եթե ոչ ավել, արդեն բնակարանի գնման իրավունք են ստացել, այս առումով պետության եւ իշխանությունների քաղաքականությունը կարծում տեսանելի է։ Ընդհանրապես աջակցության ծրագրերի մասին խոսելուց ես նշեցի, որ միջազգային դոնոր կազմակերպությունների հետ է աշխատանք տարվել UN-ի, UNDP-ի, GIZ-ի միջազգային դոնոր կազմակերպությունների, որոնք հիմնական գործընկերներն են նախարարության արդեն շատ երկար տարիներ։ Ընդհանրապես նաև այս ծրագրերի մասով խոսելիս պետք է հասկանալ, որ տեղահանված անձանց խնդիրները պետք է լուսաբանել կամ ընդհանրապես նրանց անդրադառնալ շատ նրբանկատորեն, շատ զգույշ, որովհետև շատ դեպքերում ուզում ես ինչ-որ բան անել օգնելու իմաստով, բայց չի ստացվում կամ սխալ թիրախ ես խփում։ Եվ կարճ լինեմ, հա, որովհետև շտապում եմ, եթե թույլ կտաք, եւ վերջում էլի ողջունելով այս միջոցառումը եւ նաեւ կարեւորելով դեմոկրատիան այսօր հասարակական կազմակերպության հետ համագործակցությունը, մենք նախարարությունը իր լիազորությունների տիրույթում մշտապես փորձել է հանդես գալ այդ դիրքերից, որ տեղահանված անձանց իրավունքները պաշտպանի մեր միգրացիոն ծառայությունը եւ ընդհանրապես հնարավորինս իր լիազորությունների դիրքերից փորձի ազգային եւ պետական քաղաքականության վրա ազդեցություն ունենալ։ Այդ համատեքստում կարող եք նաեւ կառավարության աջակցության ծրագրերը դիտարկել, որտեղ ֆինանսական օգնության առումով ահռելի գումարներ են ներդրվել, խոսքը Արցախից տեղահանված մարդկանց մասին է, մոտավորապես մի քանի տասնյակից ավել ծրագրեր է իրականացվել կառավարության կողմից, բացառապես ֆինանսական բաղադրիչ ունենալով, դրա մասին կարող եք gov.am-ում նայել, MTA-DM-ում նայել հաշվետվությունները եւ մնացած տեղեկատվությունը, եւ եթե միգրացիոն ծառայության մասով էլ հարցեր կան, նույնը կարող եք migration.am-ով նայել կամ MTA-DM-ով նայել, եթե այլ հարցեր կան, որոնք երկար լայնածավալ ինչ-որ տեղեկատվություն են պահանջում, ես պատրաստ եմ հետագայում ձեզ ուղարկել այդ հարցերի պատասխանները կամ բան ներողություն եմ խնդրում, շտապում եմ, եթե հարցեր կան կարճ կարող եք ձևակերպել սիրով, եթե չէ գնա։
Այո։
Հա, չէ, երկար հնարավոր չի, կներեք իհարկե։
Շատ շնորհակալ ենք, որտեղ միշտ ձեր նախարարությունը մեր կողքն ա եղել, ուզում ենք ասել, որ մենք շատ գնահատում ենք ձեր աշխատանքը, բայց եթե մի քանի րոպե ունեք, մի քանի հարցի պատասխանեք, հա։
Վստահ եմ ուշանալու եմ, խնդրում եմ ձեզ, եթե հնարավոր է, համար կարող եմ թողնել, իմ համարը թող զանգեն, մենք տեղեկատվությունը կտանք։ Հա, իհարկե, իհարկե։
Զում ու միշտ անընդհատ լսում եք, պահանջում են, դուք եք հասկանում, դուք եք դրության մեջ մտնում, առիթից օգտվելով ուզում եմ շնորհակալություն հայտնել, որտեվ կառավարությունը իրոք ամեն ինչ անում էր, գուցե անհնարինը աջակցելու մեզ, միայն մի խնդրանք, որ լիներ մի կենտրոն, մի կետ, որ բոլոր հարցերի պատասխանները կարողանայինք ստանայինք, այսինքն կա, որ մեկը ծրագրի մասնակցում ա, մեկը տեղյակ չի,
Որ ծրագրի մասնակցում։
Ընդհանրապես ծրագրեր են լինում կամ աջակցություններ են լինում, մեկը տեղյակ ա լինում, մեկը հետո առաջանում է, այս մեկին օգնեցին, այս մեկը չստացավ, լիներ մի բան, որ բոլորը տեղեկատվային, միասնական ինչ-որ մի բան, որ բոլորը
Հա, իհարկե, ես
Այդ շնորհակալություն։
I want to turn the floor to Amaya Babic, OSCE Gender Advisor, and would like to say that we very much appreciate our cooperation with OSCE through many years as advisory, as assisting to our programs and participating in our all initiatives. But thank you to OSCE. From the other side, I would also like to say that we are looking forward to further cooperation in this project, because as you might see from this presentation of these women, we have so many things to discuss, so many things to thoroughly research in order to come up with a very strong policy. So thank you very much again, and I would like to turn the floor to Amaya Babic.
Thank you so much, Gulnara. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for these very, very kind words. Dear Gunala, representatives, dear organizers, panelists, and dear colleagues. Thank you so much for the wonderful conference, productive discussions, and shared experiences. I really enjoyed listening to you. I will share a couple of points on what does the OSCE do in relation to gender equality. So OSCE as an organization is committed to ensuring gender equality as an integral part of the comprehensive security. The OSCE Secretariat's program for gender issues and other executive structures support the 57 participating states to implement their gender equality commitments, including addressing all aspects of security for women through implementation of the UNSCR 1325 and through combating gender-based violence. The OSCE is engaged in all phases of conflict cycle, which includes also work to address aftermaths of conflict. It hereby promotes peace building and post-conflict rehabilitation. Women's participation is vital, of course, in these efforts. So in order to achieve women, peace and security goals, the OSCE puts forward efforts to increase political empowerment for women and engagement at all levels of the decision-making process, generating a more effective and credible justice and security environment for women and girls after conflicts, and economic resources to support them in recovery process. All our work on the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 has also focused on the localization of the national action plans in some of our participating states. We are also happy to have produced a mapping of the impact of national action plans across our participating states, therefore enabling learning and exchange of good practices in the implementation of the 1325 agenda, but also we also recognize the efforts invested in the VPS agenda. In 2019, we published a large survey on violence against women in Eastern Europe and Southeastern Europe. The study provides a comprehensive and comparable data set on violence against women in the region. And we also published a specific thematic report on the conflict, on the experiences of women affected by conflict, their experiences related to gender-based violence. We are now also actively engaging in support of the women resource centers in the Caucasus to enable and strengthen their support to women in the region when reaching out for support and when in need for shelter. With the project, we hope to make meaningful interventions for women survivors and victims of gender-based violence. We are also hoping to map good practices and operational challenges in ensuring adequate support to survivors. This year's Human Dimension seminar, organized by the ODIHR, looked into the violence against women belonging to vulnerable groups, in particular migrants, refugees, and displaced persons, and persons at risk of displacement. We discussed status of the implementation of relevant OSCE commitments, which recognize that women belonging to vulnerable groups are particularly targeted and vulnerable to violence against women. In line with these commitments, the working group examined ways forward in addressing gender-based violence in situations of forced displacement and migration. For the past number of years, we have also been following this conference and are proud to be partners with many organizations represented here. Thank you again for inviting us. We definitely look forward to reading conclusions from this event, but also to following up on some of the issues raised. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your update. And I would like to say that ODIHR was very instrumental when, after the war, commissioned a research on the conditions of the borders of Armenia and conditions of women and what kind of impact the war had on women. So many of the recommendations have been brought to the government attention and also have been included in a new developed National Plan of Action, which also, as far as I know, OSCE has sent its own recommendations. I would like to thank for this, but of course there are lots of problems, and after that research a year has been passed and a lot of changes took place in the lives of women and lots of development have been taking place. So I think there will be a really need to incorporate additional innovative approaches and learn from other countries that what we're doing now in order to address more efficiently the problems that women face specifically women who are displaced. As the representative from Ministry of Territorial Division was saying, there is no such term as displaced women. You know, in Armenia, we have this big, real important issue because, you know, unrecognized women in their countries and unrecognized state, they came up here and again, they have a very limited rights. So I think this issue should be addressed because there are many countries in a former Soviet Union, former Soviet region, and conflict-prone countries that have this similar status like Nagorno-Karabakh has, Abkhazia, Ossetia, other countries, where people have, you know, this, so to say, low status. It's not an equal status, though it should be, but it's not an equal status, where people are denied some of their important rights. So I think this issue should be raised up and discuss these issues because I don't think international documentation or international documents or human rights documents allow us to not to provide these people or to strip of their important rights. Specifically, when we're speaking about this, specifically, I want to address the issues of young people and young women, those who cannot travel from their country to other countries because of the absence of documents, of documentation. They cannot access educational institutions. They cannot go to conferences because it's all limited for them. I think these are a very important issue. And closeness bring to stagnation of the processes inside the countries. The country should be opened. Yesterday, we heard a representative from Nagorno-Karabakh who was saying that, you know, no international organizations are allowed to go to Nagorno-Karabakh. No international journalists are allowed to go there to document the situation in place. So if this is in a place, how the world should know what are these people faced to? So there are a number of issues that we will again raise as a consequence of our discussion. So again, thank you very much. And I would like to raise the floor for questions now, if we have from the participants of the panel and the audience. Oh, okay. Leah Aslibek, huh? Leah, please raise your question. Tulek, huh? Да, whatever make tuning, the come hashler. How? Leah? Меня сразу, ага. Alia, can you say this question? Can you tell us about your question? You are on. Your sound and the camera is on. Do you want to write the question? Leah, do you hear me?
Да. Ну, пусть они меня включат. Я переименую Туликан.
Туликан, мы слышим вас. Туликан, мы вас слышим, но...
Спасибо, Гульнара.
Thank you so much, dear Gulnara. Congratulations. I think it's one is key and very interesting forum. And thanks to all panelists and great presentation. And I want to support to Gulnara because when we talk about closed land or closed entire territories, it's real tragic. It's not only today, it started a long time ago. And I remember we produced some reports, but this violation continue because it's impossible to talk about human security or to talk about gender justice without any support for people, especially for women, for girls who really under a danger situation. And regarding this last year crisis, new crisis, same pandemic and climate change, and we support to Madame Gulnara, and we are ready to create together strategic recommendation to UN, to OCV, to other institutions, because it's time to make difference. Because we have another new tragic event, same Afghanistan and others, and that's why we should think about these people and support to women and girls from these entitled territories, include Donbass, include as Nagorno-Karabakh and Transnistria in Moldova and Crimea in Russia and in the...
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for this your initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tole Khan, and thank you for raising all of these important issues. And I look forward to cooperating together on raising awareness, raising these issues to the governments, to the international agencies, to start important process. You are absolutely right, Niari, that there are new walls are being created with the. Do you mean also that is done with the political issues or also economic reasons, but also related to COVID? Are there any other questions, comments? It's very hard to conclude such a rich conference with a very, very interesting and sincere stories of women from the field. Our main goal of this process was to really have this situation from the field studied and raise this issue to political level. It is critically important to listen to people because sometimes policies are made without consideration of real needs of people. So we hope very much that to a certain extent, we've fulfilled our aim in these 2 days. And I would like to thank every speaker, everyone, to thank those who participated and were with us for these 2 days, and also translators and technicians. Thank you very much. It was fantastic work, a teamwork together. Thank you. Yeah, очень клево. Okay, okay.
Աշխարհում